going to take 2168.
Good morning. We'll call this meeting of the House Ag and Natural Resources Subcommittee to order. It is Tuesday, March the 15th. Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Representative Cochran. Here. Darby. Here. Halford. Here. Holsey. Hurt. Here. Potts. Reedy. Here. Shaw. Here. Chairman Todd. Here. Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum.
Thank you for that. Let me get to my right page here. We'll give our fact of the day real quick and then get into our business. We've got several things on the agenda. In Tennessee, there are 4 species of Asian carp that originates from the Yangtze and Amur rivers in China. These fish were imported into the U.S. in the 1970s and unintentionally were introduced to the nation's riverways in the early 1990s due to extreme flooding in ponds within the delta areas of the Mississippi River. Of the 4 species, the silver carp is most known for leaping out of the water and becoming a projectile and causing injury to boaters and water skiers. However, all Asian carp have the capacity to deplete and alter the current food web of the reservoirs that support natural resources, including highly valued recreational and commercial fisheries. Commercial fishing has the ability to remove millions of pounds of these Asian carp annually. At the recommendation of the Tennessee General Assembly's Asian Carp Task Force, TWRA funded a $75,000 grant in 2017 to the Paris-Henry County Industrial Committee to develop local commercial fishing businesses for the Asian carp. In 2020, the Tennessee Wildlife Federation received $25 million in federal funding to combat Asian carp in Tennessee through various partners. Today, different programs and groups have formed fishing tournaments, incentives, and other events to help regulate carp infestation in Tennessee waterways. And I will say one of the best ways to get rid of them is to shoot them with a bow and arrow, which I try to frequently partake of. First item we're going to take up this morning is item number 2 on your calendar, House Bill 2168 by Leader Lambert. Do I have a motion? I have a motion and a second. Sir, you are recognized on House Bill 2168.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, and Mr. Chairman, thank you for taking me up first. I deeply appreciate it. This bill is very straightforward. It's to help our state parks out, and it allows them to reinvest 2% of their hospitality facilities revenue in the actual facility maintenance. So it keeps those dollars in-house for the parks so that they can keep these, inns and everything else that we've invested taxpayer dollars in, keep those at a good high standard so that hopefully we can get a lot more life out of those and keep up with the maintenance on them.
Thank you for that explanation. Any questions for the sponsor? Seeing none, without objection, we'll be voting on House Bill 2168. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Your bill moves on to full Ag Committee, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
That brings us back to item number 1 on the calendar. And this would be by Chairman Halford, House Bill 2149. We have a motion and a second, sir. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and we've heard this bill once. I'll say a few words about it and just to kind of refresh your memory, if that's all right. This House Bill 2149 transfers control of the Carroll County 1,000-acre recreation lake to TWRA and moves it away from the current Carroll County Watershed Authority. Over the past few years, it's become apparent to management of this asset, this state asset, would be better if it was housed in another deity. And consequently, there's a line item in the budget, in the governor's proposed budget to the tune of about $11 million. So you'll find it on page B28 that would clear the debt and transfer this to TWRA, sir. And so with that, I would renew my motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have already placed in a previous meeting Amendment Drafting Code 13780 on this bill, so it is as amended, and I believe that rewrite the bill. Yes, that rewrote the bill, so that makes the bill. So that's what we are on currently. Any questions for the sponsor? Seeing none, without objection, we'll be voting on House Bill 2149 as amended. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. House Bill 2149 as amended moves on to full committee. Next on the calendar, we have item number 3, House Bill 2650 by Chairman Doggett. Motion. We have a motion and a second, sir. You are recognized on House Bill 2650.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. This bill, so oftentimes we, as representatives, we have our constituents have a lot better ideas than what we do. And so they bring us things that we oftentimes do not think about. And this is one of these bills. My constituent is with me today, Kevin Hathaway, sitting right out here in the audience here. Came to me some 16, 18 months ago and said, look, we're heading towards a food shortage in Tennessee. And that was when times were really, really good. And sure enough, as time has progressed, we have oftentimes seen the shelves in the stores have been empty, and it's not because of a lack of production, but it's just a lack of getting it there to the market. And Tennessee Made Foods for Tennesseans was the brainchild of his. He'd been working on this. We've been working on it for 16 months, looking at finding ways and avenues for Tennessee products, producers here in this state, to be able to get their products to market without a lot of the strings that we often find ourselves having to go through. And so we've done a lot of work on this. Every member that I've spoken to about this bill has been real excited about it. It's a great idea, but we've had a couple issues there, and it's a substantial fiscal note that it would have. But we have worked with the Department of Agriculture. We've got a lot of work still to go, and we want to keep the conversation alive. And I know that in the Senate, my Senate sponsor, Senator Bailey, is really excited about this bill. His colleagues are excited about it. But we want to continue this conversation further. And so, Mr. Chairman, I would ask if it would be the will of this committee if we could possibly do a summer study on this and take this up and continue that conversation.
Thank you for that explanation. Representative Reedy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And of course, that's what I noted, was it was deferred to summer study in the Senate. So at this time, I'll just make the motion that we send it to summer study as well.
Thank you.
We have a motion and a second to send this to summer study. Any debate? Without objection, we'll be voting on the motion to send this to summer study. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? There are none, and House Bill 2650 moves on to summer study, sir.
Thank you very much.
That brings us to item number 4, House Bill 2740 by Representative Holtzclaw. We have a motion and a second, sir. You're recognized.
And I just want to make an observation. I just sitting there thinking a minute ago. I looked at this committee and I said, everyone up there could own a pair of muck boots but one person. I won't even mention any names. Just an observation. Basically what HB 2740 does, in the bill summary, it categorizes the construction operation of dairy creameries, milk bottling plants, and certain slaughterhouses as agricultural operations. They're not subject to local zoning requirements when located on agricultural land. And basically, and I know some of you are well aware, there's only 22 USDA processing plants in the state, and this is the agricultural state, which is pretty alarming. I mean, like my local farmer, if he wanted to get a cow processed to take to the market or sell to a local restaurant, grocery store, he'd have to travel over an hour just to get it processed. Not only that, is there's up to 8-month waiting period time to get that processed. And to me, that's unacceptable.
Chairman Holtzclaw, I think you have an amendment on
Yes, I do.
this bill. We have drafting code 15252.
That is correct.
And we have a motion and a second on the amendment, and I understand it rewrites the bill. So let's
Yes.
go ahead and get that in its proper posture. Any objection to voting on the amendment? Seeing none, we'll be voting on House Bill 2740 Amendment, drafting code 15252. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The amendment goes on the bill, sir.
Thank you,
You may
Committee.
proceed.
I'll renew my motion basically with the explanation that I give you.
Okay, any questions? Representative Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Mr. Sponsor, would you just help me with the amendment now? Tell me exactly, I've read this 2 or 3 times this morning, and I'm just not getting all you're doing. I just need to understand what you're doing.
Basically, all it is, the bill is doing is it's easing some of the zoning restrictions for like processing plants. Is the bottom line is what it's doing.
Representative Shaw.
So are you wanted, when I read the legislation, and you need to help me here, are you saying that processing plants can go, if a processing plant can't go in an area, nothing else can go in it? Is that, I don't want to interpret your legislation, so help me with that.
Well, that's
Representative
not
Holtzclaw.
really what it's trying to say. There is some stuff in there talking about an industrial park due to, the infrastructure there that they can also be putting some of those. But it's not saying, I think what you're interpreting, I don't know.
Representative Shaw.
Thank you. I just don't quite understand.
I don't know where you're going with it, but-
Yes. No. I'm not going anyplace. Honestly, I'm just trying to really
understand it.
understand what you're doing in a very clear, decisive way. That's really all I'm trying to do.
Yeah. Well, some of this verbiage, if you try to read some of it, it'll blow your mind as far as what they have to put in there technically. But the bottom line is try to ease some of these zoning restrictions so that we can get more of these USDA processing plants is the main idea of it.
Representative Cochran.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I did just want to say I look pretty good in muck boots.
Well,
I'm not
I
going to lie
wouldn't
to
see
you.
that
I've got
picture.
some, and I look pretty good in them. Just wanted to
Record's
clarify.
duly
Be sharp.
Hey, so I did want to ask one quick question.
Okay.
So, is it intended for? So if an area is already zoned, if it's zoned agriculture, what it's saying is that the slaughterhouse falls under that agriculture designation.
That is correctly.
Okay, all right, gotcha. So, but if an area is zoned residential, you can't just put a slaughterhouse there.
That is correct.
Okay, I just wanted to
Yeah,
clarify.
you just can't throw these out in the middle of, a bunch of townhouses and stuff.
Right, gotcha. But if an area is already zoned as agriculture, we're saying a slaughterhouse is deemed agriculture.
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions? Seeing none, without objection, we'll be voting on House Bill 2740 as amended. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Your bill moves on, sir, to the House Ag Full Committee.
Thanks, sir. And I do want that picture, by the way.
Next, we have House Bill 2832 by Representative Lafferty. Do I have a motion? We have a motion and a second. Sir, you're recognized on House Bill 2832.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Committee. What we have here is a bill to make it easier for folks to take wild hogs and get them to processing plants, or get them, processed and on their way to shelters where we take care of feeding the homeless, people that are underserved in particular areas. Let the hunters donate that meat so that we can try and offset some of the hunger needs that we have. I believe the deer hunters already do something like this, and just see another resource that we could take advantage of in this state as a side benefit. You probably all know, being on ag, hogs are terribly destructive to property, to farms, things like that. This might also help get a few more people that would otherwise not take up the hunting of the hogs to do so. With that, I'll take any questions.
Any questions for the sponsor? Representative Cochran.
Thank you, Chairman Lafferty. And I was going to ask you: is it your thought or your intent that the hog, so that a hunter kills the feral hog, and then are you thinking that they would take it to a slaughterhouse, or they slaughter it themselves? What's allowing both of those? Just a little bit of clarity just on the intent there.
Representative Lafferty.
For safety reasons, it would probably need to be someplace where they are familiar with the handling and able to recognize any of the issues that might come with the diseased animal or something like that. As far as the actual nuts and bolts of how it all comes together, I'm not as well versed as I probably ought to be for this committee today. Sorry.
Any other questions? Representative Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Sponsor. have you looked into, and I know some animals are different from others, but when it comes to wild hogs, and have you looked into the kind of diseases that might be spread through those kind of animals, and who would control? The idea is great to give the meat away. That I have no problem with that. But would that be safe for families in need to go to slaughterhouses and get that kind of meat for free? Because they are wild animals who choose to eat a little bit of everything. Can you just kind of talk about that a little bit?
Representative Lafferty?
Yeah, I have been made aware, yes, that there are a category of diseases that do show up in these animals. I suspect those are similar issues with rabbits, with birds, with ducks, with deer. Again, I get back to whoever's handling this needs to know what they're doing and be able to identify those issues. And I'd like to know, I don't know how much of that gets cooked out at the end. It's my understanding that the initial handling presents some issues, but that would be the case again with deer or anything else. Getting to the end consumer, those folks in the middle processing that do need to have some sort of ability to be able to delineate, hey, this doesn't look good, this isn't good. And I would hope that the folks that are taking care of that process are established enough that they have been through seen those scenarios before.
Representative Shaw?
So is there anything in your legislation that speaks to that? Because, every hunter, the excitement of hunting is one thing, and to be able to discern what may be good or bad could very well be another. So is there anything in your legislation that would speak to that?
Representative Lafferty?
Give me just a moment, see if I can find it here. I am not going to be able to put my finger on that exactly just this moment. I'm sorry.
Representative Reedy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And of course, I have participated in the past, the Hunters for the Hungry, as far as deer and the processing that takes place. And I hope that I'm correct saying I think it's 14 counties now. It's Mr. Richardson's out in the audience as far as chronic wasting disease. So we've got the folks testing for that could potentially be a problem. The CDC just says you may not want to eat a chronic wasted diseased deer. However, I'm in support of this legislation. They do it in Texas already, but that's correct. It's when you're processing that animal and you see a problem with it, you just keep it from going into the food chain. But anyway, appreciate the legislation.
Sure.
Representative Lafferty?
And my intention would be that those folks that are in that middle process, they're the experts.
Any other questions? Seeing none, without objection, we'll be voting on House Bill 2832. Moving on to the full Ad Committee. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? I have to say no. The ayes have it. Your bill moves on, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, committee.
This brings us to House Bill 2560, number 6 on your calendar. House Bill 2560 by Chairman Terry. We have a motion and a second. Sir, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman and Committee. I appreciate you hearing this bill. It would allow a party involved in a review proceeding or judicial proceeding involving a proposed landfill or expansion of a landfill to request that the case be heard in the court of the county in which the landfill or the expansion is located. And with that, I'll be happy to answer questions.
Okay, I think we have an amendment on this bill.
Yes. Amendment number 014106.
That's what I have, sir. It rewrites the bill. Do we want to? Okay, Representative Reedy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And also, I see, Representative Terry, that this has been deferred to summer study in the Senate. Is that correct?
Representative Terry.
Thank you. That's a great question. My understanding is when they had the discussion of that bill in the Senate, they inadvertently sent it to summer study. All the members of that committee, including the chairman of that committee, has written a letter to reconsider their action on that bill. So my understanding is that they're looking at, or they're going to reopen that committee to take another action on this bill. So, I'd like to have it heard and hopefully keep it alive so that they can hear it in the Senate.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and if you haven't received a motion on the Amendment 14106, I would do so at this time.
We have a motion. Do I hear a second? We have a second on the amendment. Any discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, we'll be voting to put that on House Bill 2560. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendment goes on, sir. You may continue.
Thank you. And again, the bill, as amended, does what I said what I did in my notes, that it does allow a party involved in either a review proceeding or a judicial proceeding involved in a proposed landfill or expansion of a landfill to request that the case be heard in the court in the county in which the landfill or expansion is located. To me, for the people, the constituents that are most impacted, would be able to hear it in their county. They would be able to travel, wouldn't have to travel across state to Davidson County for this. So that's the purpose of this bill.
Any questions for the sponsor? I guess I have one. Aren't in the environmental rules category and regulations, aren't all cases heard in Davidson County for other types of things like this across the different parameters that TDEC sees over?
Thank you. That's a great question. That may be something that the attorneys may answer. I just know that during the research and discussion that I had in this legislation, the question that was brought up is that, yeah, it's heard in Davidson County. And then my question to them was, well, why is it heard in Davidson County? And there was not a good justification as to why. And, for me, at least having constituents and, of course, the travel and all that, having it in the county that this is proposed in where it's most impactful, I think makes sense.
And I just know from my experience with working for TDEC many years ago, everything was always, if you ever got to the court setting, it's in Davidson County. So this would be unusual bringing this type of thing out of that, but that's what your intention is. Any other discussion? Seeing none, if you're ready to vote, we'll be voting on House Bill 2560 as amended. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Your bill moves on to full committee, sir.
Thank you, Chairman and Committee.
That brings us to House Bill 1672, item number 7 on your calendar by Representative Cooper. We have a motion. Do I have a second? We have a second. Representative Cooper, we have a motion and a second on House Bill 1672.
Yes, sir.
And look forward to hearing your explanation.
Yes, sir.
And you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members, and thank you for your patience. House Bill 1672 is designed to provide protection, more protection for the people who are experiencing hazardous waste in their community. Years ago, I worked in the southwest area of Memphis. In fact, I worked over there 20 years with those citizens. That is the highest rate of pollution in Shelby County. And Shelby County really is the highest level of pollution in the southeastern part of the United States. That's from the research that we revealed when I attended a forum Environmental Forum at the University of Memphis. And this is just to provide safety for those families. Mr. Chairman and members, coal ash is the waste that is left after coal is combusted, burned, according to the EPA. EPA says coal ash is not hazardous waste. Coal ash is a catch-all term for several kinds of waste left over power plants that burn coal. Typically contains a number of substances harmful to human health, namely arsenic, chromium, lead, mercury, copper, you name it. It's over almost 100 different diseases that can finally come from hazardous waste in these communities. And what has happened is I've already started transporting the coal ash from the Allen plant to a landfill in southeast of Memphis. And the reports from the community is that there are trucks lined up on the streets, and they're afraid of the pollution. Now we have some. I've talked with the department extensively about this bill and about the concerns of the community. They may have some information to say about it too. But over years, 10 years of transporting ash from one community to another, up and down the streets, there's got to be some air particles that's coming out somewhere. And to prevent this, I just thought that we could just make sure that we had someone at the entry of picking up the ash and where they're dumping it in the landfill there to protect those communities. We've had experiences from dust coming out of trucks in and out of that community, and little layers of dust where the citizens would walk in and track it into their homes. And we want to make sure that these inspectors are inspecting as much as they can to make sure that air particles are not dust from one point to the other in the communities that are exposing citizens with the pollution, with hazardous waste. Residents living close to those landfills will be exposed to high coal ash, dust concentrations, that's pollution, and lead, and that it really will affect the lungs, the nervous system, kidneys, hearing impairment, high blood pressure, swelling of the brain, male reproductive problems, ulcers, bone weakness. I mean a whole list that's in research that says what it does. So just to ask for some protection when they're picking it up or when they are dumping it to the landfill, I think it's just a little something they ask. And I was looking at my fiscal note. It's a little high, but I probably need to work with the fiscal on that to make sure that, we have the right fiscal note. And if just a couple of more things, and in the research that I worked on, and I worked on it extensive, Tennessee is especially vulnerable to contaminations from coal ash because almost all of its impoundments are over 30 years old, and many lack important safeguards like pollution liners and collection systems. And this comes from Wikipedia. And all of Tennessee's coal-fired power plants are known to be contaminating drinking water supplies and toxic heavy metals. TVA plans to leave all its coal ash where it already is threatening ground and surface water, presumably forever. I'm telling this is in the books that I read, and I was really surprised at that. I don't know whether you know about it, but I think maybe some of you may I also know about the Kingston coal ash plant. Now, this is across Tennessee, not just in Shelby County. So I wanted to bring that to your attention. We don't want to be like the Family Dollar store, come out and spread all over the state and all over the United States, embarrassing Tennessee. We just need to do what we need to do to try to protect these families, these communities, and about this environmental injustice that's going on. I'll just stop there because there's a plenty that I could say here that I've been working on to present to you today, and appreciate any questions that you may have.
Thank you, ma'am. If I understand correctly, and I may have missed it if you said this, this is actually expanding the definition of hazardous waste to include coal ash and fly ash, bottom ash, boiler sag, and other byproducts from burning coal. Is that accurate?
No, not exactly. I had talked with them about it because I talked about an amendment to not say that, because my research says that that coal ash is waste, and that it's left over from coal being burned. And it also says that coal ash is hazardous. It also says that it's hazardous to the health of people in communities. So we're just asking for some protection to make sure that investigations are done periodically or when it is designed by the department to make sure that those particles are not getting out there over a 10-year period, even if you have the best and most modern dump trucks that I've seen are beautiful. But after a while, something's going to happen. And so I just wanted to make sure that we're having just that kind of protection. I think it's just a miscommunication on in the talking back and forth with the department about this. I told them just what I'm telling you about this, what the community's saying. They sent letters and everything to me about it. So if that's not clear and understanding, we need to go back to the table and redraw it so that we can have the exact language and the exact intent for this legislation. It's nothing really, I think, that is too much to ask, and sometimes, and we all human, things I'm not criticizing, trying to be, with my criticism, but it's constructive criticism.
Okay, thank you.
And yeah, and so that's, and sometimes even me, somebody criticizes me, I really get upset. So I know how that goes, but I try to do better. Even if that is criticism, I look at myself in the mirror and try to do better. So I'm not saying that they're not doing a whole lot. I know they're doing a lot, but the people think with this area being so heavily exposed to pollution, air, water, you name it, goes on in that area because it's right by the Mississippi River. So
We have some questions for you.
yes,
Representative
are there any
Cochran.
questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and appreciate the sponsor. I appreciate what you're trying to do. You'd made the points about maybe the ash coming out in transit, maybe from the backs of trucks and things like that, and getting in communities. I think that's something that is certainly worthy to take a look at. You don't want, regardless of what kind of waste someone's hauling, you don't want that flying out of the back of a truck and into the communities. So I think that's a worthy thing to look at. The way that this bill is written, though, reclassifying it as a hazardous waste, that has such broad implications for how it's just disposed of in general. So, I wouldn't be in favor of the way that this is written currently. Like I said, it's such a big change and really kind of going much further than even the EPA goes. But to your points on making sure that it's not flying out into communities out of the backs of trucks and things, I think you made very solid points on that. Just wanted to let you know. I think we just probably need to approach it a different way rather than classifying it as a hazardous waste. That kind of has bigger implications maybe than what you're shooting for. But again, like I said, I wanted to to thank you for bringing awareness to that, and probably something we need to look at. I think we might just need to look at it more narrowly rather than in such a broad sense. But just wanted to express a few of my concerns there, and I appreciate you. Thank you.
I appreciate that, Representative Cochran, because I didn't realize, and I apologize, it's my fault, that I didn't get my amendment on it to make sure that they put down what the statement of intent was. And I kept saying that, but, sometimes we just get misunderstood sometimes, Could we just kind of let me work on my amendment and all to see about it? Because this is what I was saying in my statement from the community: to ensure additional safety for families, children walking to school in communities, the air, the streets, the homes, when there are high winds. The department has shared some safety steps in place, but the community is concerned about inspections for particles of dust at loading and dumping sites over a period of 10 years in the highest area of pollution in Shelby County and other parts of the state where there have been major oil spills. Trucks are parked along the streets in the neighborhoods, and they reported this to me, and coal ash is, as we said, you said, it is broad, and we don't want to get away with it because it's broad. We want to do what is right to make sure, because it's going to create other problems for the community. We're going to have to pay for more higher health costs, and there are just a myriad of things that's going to help raise the funding that we have to take care of citizens. We have to feel, and a lot of these people living in that area are seniors. So
we have some more questions for you. Representative Shaw?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for bringing the legislation. I appreciate that, and I do voice the same concerns. My colleague over here, I think there's several things that probably could be done. In fact, I'm a little bit familiar with what you're talking about because I don't live that far out of Memphis, and I've heard some of those complaints. What I would like to suggest, Mr. Representative, would you consider letting us put this in summer study and get it in a posture where we could find out exactly what we need to do to help with the cost? Because you're exactly right. I mean, those trucks need covering, and maybe we could put in statute where they had to cover the trucks or something as they haul, whatever we need to do. But would you consider letting us do a summer study, since we are changing the definition for what hazardous materials about? Because I don't think any of us know too much about what they are without studying that. Would you consider that and maybe bringing something back that we could pass for you to help you with that?
Representative Cooper?
Representative Shaw, thank you for that concern and your observation. And it's just not in Shelby County.
Right.
It's all over Tennessee.
Yes, ma'am, I understand.
And I don't think these folk writing this research, now I read this from what was reported. So I'm at the will of the committee, or whatever you suggest and do. I would appreciate your consideration. I just appreciate your concern.
I'd like to make that
I know there are others
motion.
concerned too.
Yeah.
Representative Shaw, you're recognized.
I would just like to make that motion that we put it in a summer study and make sure that we get it in the posture. And if it means the definition of heritage to whatever, but make sure that we get it right and come back with something that would help Representative Cooper, because I think she does have a great concern, and I have the same concern. If I'd like to make that motion.
We have a motion. We have a second to send House Bill 1672 to summer study. Any discussion? Seeing none, without objection, we'll be voting on the motion to send House Bill 1672 to summer study. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. House Bill 1672 moves to summer study.
Thank you, Mr. Chair,
Thank you.
members. Thank you.
Next on our agenda is item number 8, House Bill 2381 by Representative Parkinson.
Motion.
We have a motion and a second, sir.
Good morning, members.
You're recognized, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Members of the committee, this bill is a bill that I worked, well, not just myself, that we worked. We had a team of individuals that worked on this bill, including the entire team at TDEC, that looked at adopting the recommendations of Tasser's 2020 study on waste tires being dumped in our, not just in our communities, but along ravines, in our waterways, in our communities. I'm looking at some of these headlines. Loudoun County targets illegal tire dumping. Tire dumping has become a major hazard in Chattanooga. 4 charged in Washington County tire dumping. Thousands of tires collected by local officials still on South Memphis lot. This one right here was interesting too. Used tires dumped in the lake bottom not far from Quarryville. I honestly don't know where Quarryville is, but I know I wouldn't want tires dumped in the lake in any location. And so we drafted this legislation and adopted the studies of the recommendations rather of the 2020 study that came out from Tasser. And what those recommendations were to create a permit process for used tire haulers. Those recommendations also add teeth to those who illegally dump tires in the manner of fines. Those recommendations also recommended that a registry be created for violators whose permits have been revoked or suspended. And those recommendations also recommended that we make sure that those individuals, regular citizens that are hauling used tires for their cars don't have to be permitted. And members, I got a bit of a challenge with this bill, actually 2 or 3 challenges. And I want to, out of transparency, because I always want to be honest with the committee and let you know what's happening. So in the Senate, Chairman Yeager is carrying this bill. And Chairman Yeager and Chairman Sutherland have discussed the bill, and Chairman Sutherland has agreed to open the committee up if this bill is moving out of the House. And so Chairman Yeager is waiting on us to, move this bill out of the House. And Chairman Yeager, we both sit on Tasser. He's the chair of Tasser. I'm, of course, a regular member of Tasser. And so I really would like this bill to move forward out of this committee, because it's an important bill, not just to Shelby County. As a matter of fact, Shelby County is not even the ground zero for illegal tire dumping. It's actually a county in East Tennessee that is ground zero for legal tire dumping. My challenge here in this committee is I have a timely filed amendment that addresses the concerns that I wanted to address in this committee, in this bill. And I have an untimely filed amendment. And the difference between the two is really technical. The timely filed amendment addresses everything that TDEC would like to see in the bill. However, the difference is that in my timely filed amendment, it says that the public can go after illegal tire dumpers. In TDEC's version of the amendment, which was not filed timely, and to the fault of my office, let me be clear, to the fault of my office, my assistant was out sick last week, and we just didn't get it in time, and I take full responsibility for that. In the TDEC's version of the amendment, it says that the commissioner of TDEC will be the person that goes and assesses fines and challenges people in court in regards to violations, and that's the only differences. Now, but I in my word to TDEC, and I'm a person of my word, and I want to keep my word, I said that I would like to get their amendment on there, and this is the amendment also that's in the Senate. And I would like to get their amendment on there, but it was untimely filed. And I hope that you all will give some consideration to getting that untimely filed amendment on the bill. And if not, then I'm not going to move forward with the bill, because I gave my word to TDEC that I will get their amendment on the bill. But it's an important bill, and I think it'll be beneficial to all of our state.
Thank you, Representative. We have an amendment, 15068, I think you're referencing to, and that's the only amendment that has been submitted to this committee.
That is the timely filed amendment. Yes, sir, 068.
And you prefer not to put that on at this time?
I would prefer to put the untimely filed amendment on that has been filed, that has been drafted, rather, with a drafting code.
but not
I'm sorry.
filed,
I just want
correct.
to make sure I'm clear on the
Yes.
language. Yes, sir. Yes, because I gave my word, and I want to stick to my word.
All right, so we don't have a timely filed amendment or an untimely filed amendment. We just have one in your hand that's been drafted. So, any comments, questions from the committee? Representative Reedy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and of course, Representative Parkinson, I've known already the issues we are having with tires, disposal of tires, and of course, I had a very large meeting with TDEC in my office just right when first session started, because we know that it's become paramount, because there's a lot of, and we've already heard a number of them, tire issue bills coming through on how we are trying to help our communities dispose of those, and of course, talking to some of these for-profit tire disposal places as well. And of course, I'm looking at the bill. I know it's a huge issue, and of course, it looks to me that we're trying to create more government by doing what your piece of legislation is doing. And of course, I see that it's, I'm sure you'll stick with the Class C misdemeanor offenses, and I'm hoping that we're already charging folks and catching those that are disposing of waste improperly already. So with that, I can't support your piece of legislation. I think we need to have more discussion over the summer and then come back next year with it. But that's just my thought, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if you don't mind me responding. Yes, and thank you for that, Representative Reedy, and I appreciate those comments. The drafting of this legislation is in concert with TDEC specifically. You know, we had multiple meetings. Some of those meetings lasted a couple of hours, to be honest with you. You know, because I believe that not just myself and not just yourselves, but TDEC is firmly for finding a solution to these illegal tire dumpers. And unfortunately, you know, while we have not been requiring a manifest for someone who's hauling tires to be able to track these tires and where they're going, that is what has actually, or you know, making sure that it is regulated, that we're watching what's happening. That is what has gotten us to this point. I don't want bigger government. I promise you I don't. Y'all, I keep on telling you I'm a little bit of a different kind of Democrat, right? I don't want bigger government. I wouldn't want to have to do this, but when I look at the damage to our environment and the damage to our scenery in our state, you know, the damage or what people see when they drive along our highways, you know, something has to be done, and we haven't been doing it. And these are this language in this bill is what TDOT feels is the right thing to do. I mean, TDEC, I'm sorry. TDEC feels it's the right thing to do also. And I understand and sympathize and empathize with what you're saying. I would not like to expand government, but we have to do something, because it's costing our cities, our counties, a lot of money to clean these spaces up. And that is money that they just do not have in their budget. So if we can fix it on the front end, that's what we'd like to do.
Representative Halsey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess I had to present two other bills, so I'm behind the curve coming in here, but I can tell that you're probably tired of the topic. I don't know. If we do this and do it the right way, we need the amendment. But I don't think there's a mechanism to put that on there. Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah, well, it would be suspending the rules, and that's a process.
The other side of that is, are you saying that the biggest problem, or one of the bigger problems on why we have so many tires that are junked or thrown out here or abandoned is because you have carriers that are going from point A to point B to deliver the tires, and they're getting paid to deliver them, but they have to pay to where they dispose them of, and so if they can cut their load in half, they're going to make twice as much money. Is that what you're saying?
Representative Parkinson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That is exactly what I'm saying. Not cut their load in half, but cut their load completely in a lot of cases. So you get the money for picking up the tires, and you just never, ever deliver the tires because you got the money now.
Representative Halsey.
I don't know, it seemed like maybe there'd be a better mechanism of doing that. The place that you pick them up would write the check to the disposal place, and then it wouldn't be an issue anymore. But I'm right with you in solving the problem. I really am. I don't know if there's time to get it done now.
Representative Shaw?
My question was answered.
Okay. Anyone, Representative Hurt?
I'll just kind of echo what I'm hearing is, and I'm all for, I have problems too sometimes and miss amendment deadlines and hearing the untimely filed, but the feel that I'm getting and where I stand on this, I don't know that I can support it with or without the amendment. The more I hear about it, so I don't know that putting on the amendment would do us any good unless I understand it's a process there, but. And I say that because I have found and will find again myself in that situation. I don't know where the committee is on that, but I'm all for hearing an untimely filed amendment if there's some way to do it. But at the same time, I'll speak for myself. I'm not good with what I'm hearing here, not being familiar with it when I came in. It does, to me, seem to expand, and it's an issue we need to address. But I'm not sure. Like the previous representative, I'm good with this process here. I would like to have more discussion and know more about what we're looking at, but that's my 2 cents regarding the untimely filed amendment and where I'll be on the legislation with or without it.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Representative Cochran?
And I was going to say the same. I mean, waste tires and illegal tire dumping is a huge issue. I see it in my district also. But I do think it might be something good to kind of get everybody together, TDEC, everybody involved, and let's just kind of see what would be a good workable system, making sure that we've got proper exemptions in there for, if you've got obviously farmers use tires a lot for hauling hay and things like, so if you've got a farmer going down the road with a bunch of tires, just making sure we've got proper exemptions there. But I don't think that your concept is a bad one. I mean, again, there's so many bad actors in that specific field doing exactly what you said, picking them up, and then they go find a ditch somewhere and dump them. So it seems like there would be a logical, manageable way to do this. I don't know if we're there just yet with this, the way it's written currently, but I just want you to know the concept, I think, is a good one. If we could kind of get everybody together and figure out how to do that without making government huge, but in the same way, holding those people responsible. If they're providing a service, make sure they're doing it in a responsible way that's not hurting the environment. So, but I appreciate the concept.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Seeing none, if you're ready to vote, we'll be voting on House Bill 2381. All in favor say aye. Opposed? The noes have it. The bill fails.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, committee. Appreciate the conversation on it. Thank you.
House Bill 2634, item number 9, has been taken off notice by the sponsor. House Bill 2634, off notice. That brings us to item number 10 on the calendar, and I'll be passing the gavel to Chairman Halford.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And the last time we considered House Bill 2775, I understand we overstepped our bounds a little bit, and so we're going to have to lick that calf again. So at this time, I would recognize Representative Reedy for a motion.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and at this time, I'd like to reconsider our actions on House Bill 2775.
Have a motion and a second to reconsider. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. Ayes have it. We have reconsidered, and we are back to you, Representative Todd.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And this bill actually directs the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency to set up a system of permitting with duck blinds on their wildlife management areas. And I really just want to address kind of what's brought this bill to us. I think the 10,000-foot view for me is that we all need to remember why we're here. We need to remember that the folks out there are in charge. Per our Constitution, the citizens are in charge. They elect us to make sure that their rights and their liberties are protected. That's what we're here for. We then appoint commissions, we appoint departments to do the work of the people. And when they get out of line, or when the citizens feel like they're out of line, then that's in our laps to deal with that. And that's where our position is right now, as representatives and senators here. That's what we're here for. And this bill was brought because so many hunters from across the state felt like the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency overstepped their bounds in ignoring the will of the people, and did so in some ways that were certainly questionable. They produced surveys that had questionable results. They then told us they would rely on surveys to make decisions, even this spring, and then ignored those same surveys that they themselves collected and directed, much to, again, the amazement of the hunting public. And so this bill was brought to, again, remind the commission that the people are in charge and that they have to listen to the people. And it's our job to keep them in check. So I just wanted to make that statement and remind us again where we are and what we're here for. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I would like to take this bill off notice.
Sorry. SJR 0892, you are recognized, Representative Todd.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senate Joint Resolution 892 is a request from the General Assembly that the Tennessee Valley Authority maintain operation of its coal-fired plants until a reliable backup to the power grid is developed. I think it's very important for us to maintain diversity in our fleet of energy sources. And I've even heard the head of TVA say this in the last few years when we've had power grids around the country see some significant disruption, almost to a catastrophic level because their energy mix got too off base. And I think we want to maintain our diversity, and so that's all this resolution does. It just suggests to the TVA that they maintain that coal-fired fleet of energy sources until adequate replacements are obtained.
I think we need a motion and a second on, and we're now in the proper position. Representative Reedy, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Chairman Todd, I appreciate this piece of legislation. Close to me is the TVA's largest fossil fuel plant. And of course, you and I were attending the same meeting at a legislative conference where a professor of economics and something else, but anyway, it was astounding. His reporting was what took place in Texas when they had the big freeze a couple of years ago, and showing wind energy, solar energy going offline, as well as the gas backup, those lines freezing up, and the only reliable energy they had were from a coal-fired plant, and it was only able to carry a third of the capacity of what they needed in the state of Texas. So, of course, the discussion right now, if nobody's been keeping up with the Cumberland City fossil fuel plant, they're within the next couple of years talking about shuttering that plant and converting it over to natural gas. And with that, I agree on one aspect, because in my district, Humphreys County, and the new Johnsonville plant, they have done just that. They shuttered that plant, turned it over to a gas-powered, natural gas-powered plant for the whole reason making steam for Chemours. It used to be DuPont with the titanium dioxide plant there. And they were under contract, and that's the only reason that one is actually somewhat alive. But once again, I appreciate this Senate Joint Resolution, and we need to make sure we're taking care of Tennesseans, especially during, the winters that we don't get them all the time, but when we get them, I see both stacks over there in Cumberland City just pouring out the fumes coming at it was 1990, the EPA Clean Air Act. They put the scrubbers in place. Where it used to be you'd watch the skies fill with a yellow, from the sulfur content, but the skies, they're very clean at this time, and I'd hate to think that we need to shutter it just because of what's going on in Washington, D.C. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Other questions? Seeing none, we're voting on Senate Joint Resolution 0892. All in favor will say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. Ayes have it.
That brings us to our special calendar. We have item number 1, House Bill 2869, which has been returned to the clerk's desk, so without objection, returned to the clerk's desk. Item number 2, House Bill 2637, has been returned to the clerk's desk without objection. House Bill 2637 returned to the clerk's desk. And our last item for consideration, I believe, before us today is House Bill 715 by Representative Hurt. We have a motion and a second.
Thank you,
Sir,
Mr.
you're
Chair, and I believe we have a amendment to this.
Yes, sir. Drafting code?
015728.
That's it, sir. We have a motion and a second on the amendment. Does it make the bill?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we'll go ahead and get it on and then discuss it. All in favor of drafting code 15728, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The amendment goes on the House Bill 715. You're recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee. What we're trying to do here is address a situation we find ourselves facing in the state with hemp producers that are taking products to CBD oil or processing it in our state. And what we're facing is, to give you a brief description, when the plant goes from growing to drying to the next step of being processed, the product is concentrated, and while the product is concentrated, the levels rise above what we have as the legal limit. And there are many times that product is transferred, and then it's taken to remediation and brought back into compliance, and at times that product is moved throughout our state. And so what we're trying to do here is create a situation where the products can be moved throughout the state while they're in process. It allows them to move the product with up to 5% THC to a manufacturing facility for the purposes of remediation and creating compliant products for consumers. This is a legal protection for our producers. We have accepted an amendment from the Department of Safety to satisfy their issues with the bill. We worked on this for a little while to make sure they were good. And that amendment requires the person transporting to maintain proof of a grower's license from the department in the transport vehicle. I would like to make a mention that this did pass the Senate, I believe it was last year, unanimously. So with that, Mr. Chair, I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you, sir. And we do have a couple of folks that have requested to provide testimony. And so we will go, without objection, we're going to go out of session to hear from them. We are out of session. The first on our list is Ms. Stroker from the Department of Safety. If you'll come up and identify yourself, and we'll give you 3 minutes to tell us what you have for us to hear today.
Elizabeth Stroker, Legislative Director for the Department of Safety, and I'll be quick. Thank you, Representative Hurt, for working with us over the past couple weeks to get this in a good spot where we can help the industry, but also make sure law enforcement's not put in a weird situation. And so, with the amendment, we are good. So, thank you.
Thank you for that. Any questions for Ms. Stroker? Representative Hurt.
And we've had some good discussions on this legislation and others, and I just want to tell you, thank you for saying that today, and thank you for working with us to find a good place for everybody on this.
Absolutely.
Thank you for that. Any others? Seeing none, thank you for your help. And we have Joe Kirkpatrick, who wants to testify on this as well. If you'll just come up to the microphone, identify yourself, and you'll have 3 minutes, sir. You're recognized.
Thank you, members of the committee. Joe Kirkpatrick, Tennessee Growers Coalition. No, thanks to safety. And the sheriff's also, did you mention, are we talking about we're not going to do that? Okay, all right. So I think we're good. If anybody has any questions for me and how this affects the industry, I'm glad to answer them. I thought I might need to testify, but I think we've spoken to everybody about it, and Representative Hurt's done a nice job of explaining what it does.
Seeing no questions, I thank you for your help, sir. And without objection, we'll go back in session. Committee is back in session. Representative Hurt, I'll recognize you one more time if you have any follow-up. Okay. Representative Halsey, you're recognized.
Thank you. Not to belabor, I'm just, is this oil that's going to be hauled in like in a tanker? Is it that much, that quantity, or is this a smaller vehicle, smaller amounts?
Representative Hurt.
Thank you for that, Representative. We're talking about smaller amounts. Usually they're in, they could be in gallons or 20 gallons, but it's a very thick concentrate of what's called, the rough term is called crude oil. And it could vary on size. It could be a couple of large containers, but for the most part, I don't know of any that are transported on large trucks. I do know that they're transported on smaller vehicles.
Any other questions? I do have one. Is that the only product that's authorized under this permitting process that you described in this bill?
Yes, sir. That's the way I understand that is the product that is in process, which there is a crude, and then there's another step. The more it's refined, the more it comes into remediation and legal. The farthest out of compliance would be in that crude oil form, the way it looks, and that this permit, along with the proof of grower's license that they would carry, would cover that.
Okay. What is the position, you may have said this, of the Department of Agriculture on this, as amended?
I believe, and from what I remember, they were involved in some of those conversations in agreeing to get these growers permits to be used. So I believe they were involved in those conversations too.
Okay. Any other questions? Seeing none, if you're ready to vote, without objection, we'll be voting on House Bill 715 as amended. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The bill moves on to full committee, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Committee.
I believe that it brings us to the end of our calendar, and if I hear no other business before us, then Representative Halford, you're recognized.
Mr. Chairman, I assume this is our last committee
Yes, sir.
meeting. I'd just like to say it's been a pleasure to serve with you. You've done an excellent job.
Thank you.
I appreciate that. You were always fair and willing to listen to everybody, so I appreciate that very much.
Thank you,
I enjoyed
sir.
serving on this committee.
Representative Shaw.
Just want to say amen to the chairman. Good job. I've certainly enjoyed serving with you and with the committee members.
Thank you, sir. Well, hearing no other business before us, we will be adjourning to the call of the chair, subject to the call of the chair. No objections. Without objection, we're adjourned.